the Palestinian resistance has been able to essentially create through the tunnels a base area from which it's able to lead operations and able to conduct very powerful resistance operations. I mean, if we look at October 7th, we always make the point, and it's an absolutely correct point, that this battle did not start on October 7th and the genocide did not start on October 7th. And we're talking about 76 years and, in fact, over 100 years of struggle. But the fact is that October 7th changed the world. And when we say October 7th changed the world, one of the reasons why we might say that is because on October 7th, we saw the potential of a future for Palestine liberated from Zionism by the force of the resistance.
It's really important to see how the Al-Aqsa flood operation have liberated the Palestinian inner strength outside the new generations that today are getting involved in the struggle. And it's so visible in the US, Canada, Europe, and elsewhere of a new generation that is actually leading our struggle in the diaspora. And if we take, for example, certain tactics that the Palestinian movement have practiced, take, for example, hijacking airplanes. It was one of the most important tactics that the Palestinian resistance have engaged in. If it wasn't for these tactics, we would never heard of Layla Khalid, for example, and other Palestinian women who led these kind of heroic operations that introduced the Palestinian questions to the world. If you take, for example, the speeches that were giving to the people in the airplanes by Palestinian fighters, and these documents, when you read them, they're all about what is our struggle is about.
You know, of course, armed struggle is what immediately comes to mind when you think about the resistance, and this is something that we know that Palestinians have a right to engage in under international law as an occupied and colonized people, and regardless whether this was enshrined in international law or not.
We're certainly talking about the Lebanese resistance. We're talking about Hezbollah, the commitment that the Lebanese resistance has had throughout this entire time, not only to the liberation of Lebanon from Zionism, but to the liberation of Palestine as well. Right now, the Lebanese resistance is waging a battle on the northern border of Palestine that has caused significant damage, that has emptied settlements in the north of Palestine and emptied military bases in the north of Palestine. That has been a significant contribution to the resistance in this battle. And we're also talking about Iran as a nation on the side of the Palestinian people, intervening and building a movement of resistance to free this entire region, to free Palestine from Zionism, but to free the region from US imperialism. And so the question for us who are organizing, particularly in North America, in the belly of the beast, in the heart of the imperial core, is how do we get organized and use the organizing that we're doing in order to be a meaningful part of that global front of resistance, that we can actually be of service in a moral, political way to the resistance movements that are on the front lines, fighting Zionism, fighting imperialism, and fighting for a future that means a future of liberation for humanity rather than one of continued exploitation, hegemony, and domination. It is important to popularize campaigns to scrap the US terror list entirely, or at the very least, to get Palestinian, Lebanese, Yemeni, Filipino, and other revolutionary organizations off the terror list, because that's a weapon that's being used against the Palestinian people, against the Arab people, and against the solidarity movement as a whole, and in order to kind of fundamentally deform the politics of the movement.
Today, Palestinians don't use the word revolution. They use more the word resistance. But I think after October 7th, Palestinians have revived their revolution because they have now engaged in not just defending themselves and their existence, but also we are moving towards taking initiatives.
Don't acquiesce to the idea, well, oh, they're considered terrorist organizations, so we shouldn't talk about resistance. You know, there have been organizations since October 7th, and I'm not going to name names, but, you know, kind of putting themselves out on the front line, literally telling me we want to invite you to speak, but you can't mention October 7th. You can't mention resistance. Straight up. Actually, now they mention resistance. Now they'll talk about it 3 months later or 5 months later because they saw we did it, we got away with it, we got support for it, you know, and we're kind of like the test subjects or the guinea pigs. We're gonna put ourselves out on the line. And you know, if people are okay with it, then they'll jump on it, you know, later. So this is why you know, so many groups like the PFLP and others are considered terrorist organizations. It's because they rejected being puppeted by Israel and the US. They rejected this. And then the only group that didn't reject this, they're the group in power. And of course, the Palestinian people resisted this with the Second Intifada, you know, showing that, you know, signing Oslo, and Oslo was signed the year before I was born. So I don't consent to my rights, my right of return being given away, just like many other Palestinians didn't at the time and still don't today.
And it goes to show, you know, how the people want resistance. People don't want this peace process. They don't want these like Oslo farces. They want to fight, and they want to fight for the Palestinian people.
We assert that we are one people, one nation. We have the right to return home, and we will get that right by any means necessary.